Hey guys, Crypto Sunday, and it's a bit of a red week, largely down to Bitcoin and Solana. Bitcoin and Solana seem to be sort of following each other, and then you have sort of Ethereum and all the other alts doing quite okay, really. But yeah, down 22,000. I'm not entirely convinced I was ever at 563 really last Sunday. I think that was just sort of maybe a bit of a bug in the reporting, but it's still down since last week. So we're about 4%. But yeah, let's have a look at some of the news. So the CoinShares report, as expected, was very, very large, 3.13 billion in total inflows. We had Solana actually outpacing Ethereum for probably the first time ever, really. 16.2 million on Solana and 2.8 on Ethereum. 3.07 billion into Bitcoin, of course. Outflows out of the multi-asset fund again, not ideal. A little bit sort of strange, but it's 7 billion in total assets under management, so it's only a small move. XRP, almost worryingly, 15 million. I sort of still see it as a banker's central bank digital currency, potentially coin. And yeah, I sold it and it's absolutely smashing it. So that's pretty normal. Litecoin, 4 million, bit unusual. Cardano, 0.7 million and 10.4 million into short Bitcoin. They, I guess, might have made some money over the last week. Sort of had some dips and back up again. 1.3 million into Chainlink and 6 million into other coins. I notice Europeans have sort of getting all manner of stuff. Aptos staking ETFs and Dogecoin and all sorts. People sort of saying Europe are behind the curve with the Americans, but certainly not on the ETF side. By country, see quite a large outflow out of Brazil. Not quite like them. They sort of seem to have given up their regular deposits every week. Australia, 9 million inflow. Canada and Hong Kong with some reasonable inflows. But some sort of fairly big outflows from Germany and in particular Sweden, 84 million. 17 million out of Switzerland. We don't really know if this is funds sort of moving into the US ones. It could be obviously 3.2 billion into US ETFs. So yeah, fair enough. Looking a little bit more at the recent flows. So this week it was Thanksgiving week in America, so it was a little bit quieter. You had Monday, the sort of biggest outflow for a while. You had some sort of 370 and 400 outflows not long after the election, but yeah, 435 on Monday and another 122 on Tuesday. Although interesting, sort of both days you had BlackRock a fairly big inflow on the outflow day and flat on the second outflow day. So you still don't get BlackRock selling all the way through this. It's either zero or positive. Either strong holders or it's sellers selling to new buyers. But yeah, certainly solid. And then you had Wednesday, small inflow. Thanksgiving, they were shut. And then Friday, back to sort of reasonable inflows, 320 million. Again, spread across pretty much everywhere. And just looking at the Ethereum ETFs, you could say we've sort of broken into life. We had sort of, after a fairly sort of outflowy period after the US elections, sort of in the face of enormous Bitcoin ETF inflows, started to get a bit of inflow. So you had sort of 91 million on Friday last week, but yeah, 2.9, 40 million, 90 million sort of day before Thanksgiving, and then a break. But then on the Friday, all of a sudden, 250 million into the BlackRock Ethereum ETF and sort of 79 into Fidelity, so giving you 332 inflow into Ethereum. Could be sort of one of the largest days. I think I can't remember what they got sort of first few days. I expect were much larger, but yeah, a pretty solid inflow day. So ETFs sort of on Bitcoin and ETH looking pretty solid. So we're starting to get some disagreements in global liquidity. Sort of various people have done charts sort of comparing it, Bitcoin to M2's money supply and sort of their own global liquidity indexes. You sort of notice maybe before someone I follow quite a bit is Raoul Pal and his Real Vision sort of platform and various people on there. And he sort of has these lovely pink charts with global liquidity and sort of Bitcoin overlaid. And he's sort of showing at the moment Bitcoin peaking around with global liquidity sort of as a local top, he's calling it, at the end of December, sort of around New Year's time, at sort of nearly $110,000 Bitcoin. But then sort of quite a fairly sharp drop back down, sort of liquidity coming off from 124 to 120, but that has obviously extremely amplified effects on Bitcoin. But yeah, dropping sort of 40% to about 67,000 in sort of mid-February time. I think this seems quite stark, to be honest. That sort of move. We've had that sort of move with the election, and we had the move with the ETFs, but not really sure what could cause a 40% drop unless we're getting some sort of fairly large black swan, across the whole market, sort of macro stocks and everything. And January and February, not really sure what that would be. I guess it has to be a black swan that we don't really see yet. But yeah, I'm not convinced that we get up to 110 and then all the way down to sort of the summer times, basically 67,000. We were up and down around there all the way through the summer. I think that'll be seen as extremely pessimistic by the market. You've also got Michael Howell on his sort of custom global liquidity indicator, admittedly pointing sort of downwards in the early part of the year, in the first couple of months of the year, similar to Real Vision. So yeah, he's sort of saying, they're both sort of saying it's potentially a buying opportunity and it's not the overall top. They still expect things to go up in 2025, but yeah, certainly showing a local top. I do kind of think they should sort of zoom out. You look at, they're sort of posting this chart and saying, look, it's basically 99% correlated, but it is basically just this year. You look, this chart starts in December last year, so sort of in actual time, obviously you can't, not counting the projected months here, it's not even a year's worth of chart. So I do think showing a little bit longer term and seeing whether these two sort of break apart or diverge from each other would be worth showing. I suppose we can look back at previous charts projecting forward and see if the price actually did what they expected. We'd have to sort of maybe go through some of their old charts. Other people at Real Vision, to be fair, are sort of seeing rising liquidity, but sort of showing a straight line. Maybe there is a bit of a drop and then a rise to where they're thinking. But this is Jamie Coots, chief crypto analyst at Real Vision. So maybe he's focused more on the crypto side and sort of less on the macro. But yeah, he's seeing global liquidity sort of basically upwards for the next year, and Bitcoin price sort of potentially, not saying absolute max, but rise to over 132,000 next year, which sort of I would guess is a conservative prediction by some people's measure. Should remind everyone, I suppose, even without huge drops like that, you can still lose your shirt going, super leverage long, as the sort of degenerates will do. I would like to think sort of none of my audience would be going quite this crazy. Bitcoin dropped to 93,000. It sort of dropped to about 91.5, I think, at points. But yeah, sort of people like losing their whole account basically, large liquidations. Sort of read, what is this, 480 million in 24-hour liquidations. Some people, and it's sort of some long, some short. So sort of even when it goes down, people shorting are losing money, same as, people lost money going long on the sort of Trump win candle. So Bitcoin rocketing up, and people are sort of 100x leverage, and the slightest sort of pullback during that huge up move, and you lose all your money, even going long. So that's a little bit ridiculous. But always a good reminder to, I would say, just not bother with that leverage. If you want a little bit of leverage, go for something a little bit more risky and stay 1x, or maybe do something like options so you can't get liquidated, and just stay away from sort of things that can margin call you in the night, or sort of margin call you on a crazy wick downwards for 5 minutes, or whatever happens sort of on the exchanges. It's not exactly a super liquid mature market, and you can get these crazy things that just whack you, even if you're betting on the right direction, as you can see. Well, this was interesting, though. A premium on the CME futures market has already hit 100,000. You can see sort of a couple of times it's bobbed above, got to 100,315, and it's sort of been, bobbling around that area. So that's quite unusual. It's not something you'd normally see the futures sort of being a little bit lower, because people are sort of shorting futures and sort of buying the ETFs as that sort of basis trade to get a little bit of income, hedge funds and people like that, and sort of they will always come back towards equilibrium. But maybe this means sort of even outside of those people, there's a ton of institutions sort of who prefer to buy futures and want some Bitcoin exposure, I guess, pushing that up, or I don't know, maybe doing some sort of other arbitrage trade. But yeah, interesting. It's sort of it's gone, I guess, like, what is it, 1,000, maybe 2,000 over sort of the rest of the spot market. You got more adoption and sort of legalizations and approvals. Hong Kong proposing a tax break for hedge funds, private equity, and family investment vehicles. So if you come to Hong Kong to either launch your fund, or sort of move your fund to Hong Kong, it's a 6-week consultation. Includes exemptions for investments in private credit, overseas property, carbon credits. So it's not just crypto, but yeah, they're sort of trying to battle, as they say, regions like Singapore and Switzerland, who provide sort of similar tax incentives. So yeah, competing for this sort of venture capital institutional type money, and crypto is a part of that. You got Russia approving new crypto tax law to recognize it as property. So interesting. And they're looking at imposing a 13 to 15% personal income tax on cryptocurrency sales. So that's relatively low. The UK would now be sort of between 18 and 24%, depending on your income. It's capital gains tax. And also exempts Russian crypto miners from VAT on mined coins. Awaits the signature of President Putin, but it's sort of expected to go through. And the Russian crypto miners must report their activity to the government, so it's still sort of being overseen a little bit by the government. Although failure to comply results in a fine of $360. I expect some miners may just take the fine, because that's rather small if you've got a reasonable sized operation. So yeah, Russia sort of, we know, have been getting involved for a reasonable time, partly wanting to sort of avoid US dollar sanctions, but yeah, looks like they're pressing forward. Oh, I thought this was really funny as well. A UK pension firm. So we saw, I think they reported a couple of weeks ago, Cartwright, where sort of they act as an advisor to various pension schemes, and they were sort of saying that they were advising Bitcoin at sort of, various percentages, whatever you want to end up putting in it. And the first unnamed defined benefit pension scheme as well. So that means, the people drawing their pension get a fixed amount. It's not, if a defined contribution scheme would mean like if they lost some money in Bitcoin, then just the people would get slightly less. But defined benefit, people basically get a fixed amount, and if they lose money, then the scheme could sort of collapse, or they may have to cut their fixed payments, which always looks appalling. But yeah, defined benefit scheme has used 3% of its assets to buy into crypto, and I believe they were doing spot as well, not through the ETFs. But yeah, they've been called by various people deeply irresponsible. They've said for a company with such a long-term time horizon shouldn't be gambling with retirees' futures. They have, of course, called it speculating the beneficiaries' assets on something that has no intrinsic value. I'm sure they'll sort of invest in gold at various times, and you could say that has no intrinsic value. It's sort of use in electronics and that sort of thing is a very, very tiny part of the total market cap, and other than that, it has value because I would say we attribute it value, and it has sort of very little intrinsic value. Something like steel has maybe worth a lot less, but has more intrinsic value. So this was Daniel Wiltshire, an actuary at Wiltshire Wealth. Yeah, deeply irresponsible. Pension trustees have an obligation to ensure scheme assets are managed prudently, and this precludes taking punts on a basket case asset like crypto. For the sake of the members, I hope the regulator is paying attention. So it's a basket case asset. So there you go. To be fair, you've got other UK people, at least. Chris Barry of Thomas Legal said anything less than 5% allocation is sensible, and UK pension funds need to catch up to their US equivalents who've been investing in crypto for years. So, not sure too many pension funds have, but certainly sort of hedge funds and various other ones. Maybe they've been investing in spot crypto and sort of just haven't reported it all that much because they've only had the ETFs this year, haven't they? Bitcoin is top performing asset, and Trump winning the election is very bullish. You also had David Bell, founder and trader at Think Money, says a pension scheme portfolio is about numbers. It's numbers made up of different betas, assets which either outperform or underperform a benchmark. Crypto is a fine asset class if it fits the risk appetite. So you can have, a load of bonds and sort of stocks and things as your sort of low and medium risk. And if you want to have a little bit of risk that sort of doesn't completely cripple it if it goes down, but could do really well, a nice sort of asymmetric bet as a small allocation, as they say, under 5%. These people are doing 3%. I would say that's fair enough. There's a risk if you sort of go too low risk and have sort of an enormous amount in bonds that you underperform, and you can end up sort of not having enough money through taking too low risk. And again, the scheme could end up collapsing over the longer term. And finally, the thing everyone's sort of getting excited about is the US Strategic Bitcoin Reserve. Obviously, Trump isn't even in yet until, is it January the 20th? But people are already sort of speculating on whether they will sort of initiate this and how long it'll take, and, whether it'll be the first days in office, as if there's nothing more important to be doing on your first day as president. But yeah, there you go. And so other governments are sort of potentially front-running this. You've got government officials in Brazil sort of proposing a legislation to start a strategic Bitcoin reserve of their own. I think Brazil were saying they would be looking to put $18 billion into theirs, which is sort of an incredible amount of money, really. I always go back to the 2020 sort of start of the bull run, really got going with Tesla sort of putting in $1 billion. So, yeah, 18 billion from Brazil. Obviously, we're starting from a much higher price now, so you need more money to sort of kick off something like happened in 2020. But yeah, 18 billion, depending on how quickly they want to put it in, would make a huge difference. Obviously, got El Salvador as pretty much the first country that has, taken this route. But yeah, certainly the US even hinting at doing it has stoked up bigger countries to do it. I still think the US can sort of sign in, basically just saying that the 200,000 that they currently own is their reserve, and they wouldn't actually have to buy anything. And that would sort of maybe be a disappointment to some people expecting this, Bitcoin Act to buy 200,000 annually over a 5-year period and have up to 5% of the total supply. I'm not sure, not really convinced that would go through, but certainly just saying they hold the 200,000 that they've got, it's 1% of Bitcoin, it may sort of trigger everyone else, or, a lot of large countries to think, well, we want some as well. And you could get that sort of bullish move with other countries buying in without the US actually having to buy. And then that could drive price up and their strategic reserve goes up in value without them having to spend a penny because they got sort of basically all of theirs from criminal seizing of assets. And Poland, you got a presidential election, and this new chap is sort of saying if he becomes the president, their country will become a crypto haven. I think there's quite a lot of crypto havens really now, but with very friendly regulations, low taxes, and a supportive approach from banks and regulators. And he sort of suggested the creation of a strategic reserve. So, yeah, another one. A lot of Russian legislators have suggested creating a stash of crypto in the state treasury. Not quite calling it a strategic reserve, but more of a stash. But this is a sort of, group of legislators rather than sort of anybody in too high a position. And that has had opposition from a Russian state committee member. So, yeah, we'll have to see what Russia do, but it's big countries, it's G20, not G7, but G20 at least countries looking at having a strategic reserve. And I think this is sort of, as I say, more realistic, Bitcoin, US basically keeping what they've got and calling that a reserve. That would be quite easy to pass a law, I would think, with Trump sort of having a red sweep and not buying any, and then other countries sort of would buy to catch up. So let's see. And portfolio-wise, as I say, it's pretty much Bitcoin and Sol, and then the rest. You got Bitcoin down 2.63%, Solana down 8.25%. And then a bunch of greens. Ethereum up 6.85%. So the Ethereum Bitcoin ratio is looking slightly more healthy, although still fairly down at the lows. Chainlink up 5.5%. Gala up 7.6%. Power Ledger up 11.4%. That's done quite well for the week. Audius 7.14%. Basic Attention Token up 17%. Internet Computer up 4%. Quant is down 1.77%. The only other altcoin down. Polygon up 3%. And VeChain up 3.8%. So, yeah, very odd. Solana sort of seems to be following sort of, well, basically being a leveraged Bitcoin and sort of doing similar to what that does, where Ethereum and sort of pretty much all of the other altcoins are doing sort of, I wouldn't say their own thing, they're all sort of doing the same thing to varying levels. So we'll have to see where we go. It's been a sort of a little bit of a pullback, nothing sort of too much, but yeah, I'm sort of prepared for a bigger pullback, whether that comes in January or February, as sort of people like Raoul Powell and Michael Howell are saying, or if it comes sooner. But I think we're still good for the next year. So leave your thoughts in comments below, and like and subscribe. See you soon.